Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial. Please, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please go back and subscribe, then come and let's talk about the C structure and style. Please guys, go subscribe. So this tutorial is all about the C structure and style. This is the basic introduction to good coding style in the C programming language. It is designed to provide information on how efficiently use indentation, comments, and other elements that will make your C code more readable. It's not a tutorial on actual C programming. As a beginning programmer, the point of creating structure in your program code might not be clear, as the compiler doesn't care about the difference. However, as programs become complex, changes that writing the program has become a joint effort, or others might want to see how it was accomplished, or you may have to read it again years later. Well-written code also helps you to get an overview of what the code does. In the following slides, we will attempt to explain good programming practices that will in turn make your programs clearer. So, in C, programs are composed of statements. Statements are terminated with a semicolon and are collected in section known as functions. By convention, a statement should be kept on its own line, as you can see in this slide. So as you can see there, each statement is on its own line. You have the print hello world terminated by a semicolon. This is actually a statement. You have the return 0, which is actually a statement. So a statement normally should be kept into its own line. So the following code block is essentially the same, while it contains exactly the same code and will compile and execute with the same result. The removal of spacing causes an essential difference. It's harder to read. As you can see there, this code is harder to read, but it's exactly the same as the one that you saw in the previous slide. So but it's harder to read. As the code become complex, it will not be easy to identify what was doing what and so on. The simple use of indents and line breaks can greatly improve code readability without impacting code performance. Readable code makes it so easier to see where functions and procedures end and which lines are part of which loops and procedures. So this tutorial is going to focus on improving the coding style of an example piece of code which applies a formula and prints the result. Later, you will see how to write a code for such tasks in more detail. For now, focus on how the code looks, not what it does. Okay, we have the line breaks and indentation. The addition of white space inside your code is arguably the most important part of good code structure. Effective use of white space can create a visual scale on how your code flows, which can be very important when returning to your code when you want to maintain it. Within minimal line breaks, code is barely human readable and may be hard to debug or understand. As you can see, the code here, this code here, is very harder to understand. Rather, putting everything on one line, it is much more readable to break up long lines so that each statement and declaration goes on its own line. After inserting line breaks to the code will look like this. You see, so it is more readable, human readable, and easy to interpret what is actually going on there. So We have also the blank lines. Blank lines should be used to offset the main components of your code. Always use them after preprocessor directives. After new variables are declared, use your own judgment for finding other places where components should be separate based on these two rules. There should now be at least two line breaks added after line 1 because line 1 has a preprocessor directive. After line 5 because line 5 contains a variable declaration. This will make the code much more readable than it was before. The following lines of code have line breaks between functions but without indentation, as you can see there. But it's still not as readable as it can be. So, indentation, although having simple line breaks between key blocks of code can make code easier to read, it provides more information about the block structure of the program. Using the tab key can be very helpful. Indentation visually separates paths of execution by moving their starting point to a new column. This simple practice will make it more easier to read and understand code. Indentation follows as fairly simple rules. All code inside a new block should be indented by one tab more than the code in the previous path. So, based on the code from the previous section, there are two blocks requiring indentation: line 4 to line 16, line 13, as you can see there. So, it's now fairly obvious as to which parts of the program fit inside which blocks. So, now you can tell which parts of the program the coder has indented to be conditional and which one he or she has not. Although it might not be immediately noticeable, once many nested paths get added to the structure of the program, the use of indentation can be very important. First, indentation makes the structure of your program clear. It is claimed that research has shown that an indentation size between 2 to 4 characters is easier to read than 8 characters indents. However, an indent of 8 characters may still be in use for some systems. Okay, in program we also have we call comments. Comments in code can be useful for a variety of purposes. They provide the easiest way to set off specific paths of code and their purpose, as well as providing a visual split between various parts of your code. Having good comments throughout your code will make it much easier to remember what specific paths of your code do. Comments in modern flavor of C can come in two forms: single line comments, that is on a single line of code you put a double slash, as you can see there, and we have the multiple line comments, that is to comment on multiple line. If you have things to add that cannot be only use one line, you can use multiple line with slash, star, then you can write your comment and then star, and then you can end up anywhere. Now that the single line comments are more recent additions to C, so some compilers may not support them. A recent version of GCC will have no problem supporting them. This section is going to focus on a various use of each form of commentary. Single line comments. Single line comments are most useful for simple sites. Note that explain what certain parts of the code do. The best place to put these comments are next to variable declaration and next to pieces of code that may need explanation. Comment make clear the intention and idea behind the corresponding code. What is immediately obvious from reading the code does not belong in a comment. Based on your previous program, there are various good places to place comments. So line 5 for example, or line 6 to explain what int revenue and int cost represent. Line 8 to explain what the variable role is going to be used, and so on. So as you can see there, that previous code is now commented using a single line comment with a slash slash. So remember that these comments are not interpreted by the compiler, so it's just for you, the programmer, as you are note. So multiple line comments are most useful for long explanation code. They can be used as copyright licenses notices, and they can also be used to explain the purpose of the block of code. This can be used for two reasons. They make your function easier to understand, and they make it easier to spot errors in code. If you know what a block is supported to do, then it is much easier to find the piece of code that is responsible if an error occurs. So that, I hope you got the point, guys. So that's the overall idea about comments. That's not only in C programming language. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. So that's the basic coding style, not only in C, but it's also very useful in another programming language. So guys, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and we continue our journey in the next tutorial. See you guys. Bye.